It's the 5th of March 2019. I'm here at Stanton Cricket Club. I'm David Griffin and I'm talking to
Andy Taylor,
David Cousins,
Rob Allen.
Gentlemen, I think this is the 6th interview we've conducted this evening. We've spoken to about a dozen or more people, I think, so far. And one of the names that's come up is, in virtually every interview, is the name of Doug King. And I understand Doug was a very influential cricketer at Stanton. Perhaps, Rob, if I could just turn to you, just to tell us, he died 4 or 5 years ago, I understand. Can you tell us a bit about his influence on cricket in Stanton?
Well, I think it's no exaggeration to say that Doug King influenced every aspect of Stanton cricket. I mean, as club secretary, I have the minutes of the committee meetings going back to the 1950s, and every single meeting has got Doug King there. And he clearly did the ground. He was secretary. He did chairman as a role, and he ended up as president. And in fact, he's still around because the pavilion's named after him. Really, he's got his plaque there.
Was he a good cricketer?
He was a good cricketer, a very good cricketer, if I understand it correctly. He worked at Stanton Ironworks. He would have got people involved with the club. So I think, you know, the fact that the club is still here today is a big testament to the effort that Doug King put in. He was up at the ground most days, doing work on it. He was responsible in taking the club forward. You know, things like organising the pavilions, and we've heard about the van bringing the tractor bringing things up to the ground, and a new pavilion, and Doug would have been involved in all of that as well as playing. And by all accounts, he was a really good cricketer, and he was central to everything that Stanton is. And you asked, will Stanton be around, you know, in 25 years' time and 50 years' time? Well, I think, you know, people sort of you feel a responsibility really to people like Doug, who worked so hard to make the club what it is today, to keep it going. And I'm sure, you know, young people take it forward and take it seriously because of that. Doug would have come when I first started at the club. He'd stopped playing then, but he was up at the club every Saturday watching the game, and even into his late 90s he would come up and enjoy watching the game. And my recollection of Doug King was quite simple really. He was the loveliest man, and he would always have a kind word for you. He would always welcome you, and he'd always talk fondly about Stanton cricket, and he was just an absolute gentleman. And we couldn't have had a better sort of influence on the club over all these years. And of course it goes on because Andrew, who was playing when I first started playing, was a terrific cricketer. It's very interesting because when you go to the league meetings and that sort of stuff, you meet people who say, "Oh, give my regards to Andrew," and so Andrew played a lot and was a very fine cricketer. And Doug's grandson David now has taken up the mantle and is a very fine cricketer as well. He's played a few times for the club, but he lives down in Norfolk. So their influence comes all the way down.
Well, it's a great legacy, and certainly if he got into his 90s, literally he had a great innings. So it's nice that you've been able to put on record for posterity that tribute.
He did, and he worked tirelessly with other names that are the foundation of the club. John Bower is a name that everybody in the club will know. Ron Clark, who was Sally's father. In fact, Russ Daniels, who couldn't be with us tonight, but sent me an email with some of his reflections on Stanton cricket, described Ron Clark as the most competitive cricketer he's ever met in his life. So, it's a lovely club, but it's had its moments, and they're all very competitive, even then. So, but some great characters for us to live up to as we go forward.
Dave, it's interesting because we've just been talking about a great man of Stanton cricket, and we touched on the fact his work on the ground. And I know that you're now a groundsman, but you played originally.
I joined in 2011 as groundsman.
Oh, right.
I had no intention at all of playing. I played a lot when I was a child at school and whatever, but I basically stopped when I was 22.
Really?
And moved on to other things, I guess.
Yeah.
And I suppose there was just something in the background that sort of yearning to do a bit or something. My first involvement, as it happens, my father was in Stanton Hall just before he died in 1999, and he was a very, very keen cricketer. And in those days, there was just one occasion. This was my one contact with the club. I was able to wheelchair him up through the orchard to the hedge, which was not as big as it is now, and actually watching a bit of cricket. And that was his last summer.
Wonderful.
I was in '99.
Right.
So anyway, 2011, I was anticipating retirement and felt the urge to get outdoors as much as I could after 20 odd years of sat in the office, and wandered up to the ground. So did they need any help any time with the grounds? I was a part-time gardener or whatever at weekends. I had a little job as well. And they said, yeah, of course, come along, we absolutely welcome you. And to my surprise, I'd been home about 20 minutes and the phone rang and said, by the way, what are you doing Saturday? Would you like a game?
Wow. So what was the gap between when you was without aging you too much or dating
Well,
you?
what would that be?
How many years did you go
that
without
would
playing?
be 36 or something.
Right.
So I played that Saturday,
Enjoy it?
which I found pretty difficult, I have to say.
Bit stiff the next morning.
Not half. It's,
Did you get any runs or
no,
take any wickets?
no. And so it continued. But no, I played a few times each year, and then the odd injury comes up, which was not something that you ever used to think about previously, But no, I've enjoyed the odd game, but enjoying doing the ground as well, essentially.
Well, I mean, the thing is that we talk in any sport, and cricket in particular, because there's such a multifaceted number of people to get a game on. We all think it's about players, but of course, whether it's a scorer or an umpire or the people who make the tees, you can't get a game on without it. And I guess we've moved on from the days of the cows or the sheep cutting the grass for you. So is it? It must be quite. Is it a technical role in this day and
It's
age?
as technical as you want it to be. Yeah, I mean, it's far more so than, again, I remember being about 12 and helping my dad and my uncle cut the field, which of course was, it was like a cow field essentially. So I learned. I went on one little training course, and then you just learn by doing largely.
And you
And
meet up with
I
other
should
groundsmen
mention.
or the
Oh yeah,
groundsmen
I should mention that the existing groundsman who is still with us, sadly has been very ill for some time, called Alan. So he was expert in all things, and he's also the mechanical man, so keeping the machinery going and so on, which is not my forte. So pay great tribute to him really, and you just pick it up as you go along, and certainly there are other groundsmen, and there's an association, and they have occasional meetings, and you get newsletters and stuff, so it's all useful.
And
But
is the weather the bane of your life? Do you
of course,
sit there on a Friday night looking
yeah,
out the
because in
window?
a perfect week, of course, you plan what will happen during the week, and it will lead up to perfection on the Saturday. But of course, as often as not, it doesn't go like that. So you have to be adaptable and make the best of it, essentially. And then sometimes there's a tricky decision come the Saturday when everything's just a bit dodgy, and there's an involvement typically with the captain of the day to say, do you risk, if you like, overcommitting yourself, or do you call it off early, or do you say this is going to be a waste of time?
Yeah.
And there can be a tricky decision to make then. You don't want to call something off, and then of course sod's law, come Saturday afternoon and the sun's shining, and
Well, and also
perfect,
I guess
isn't it?
you can perhaps answer this, Andy. In recreational cricket, you live for that game all
Absolutely,
week, don't you?
yeah.
There's an old tales about county cricketers that within about a week of the season starting, they're looking out the window if there's a bit of damp. They want to call the game off. They don't want to play. Whereas you guys, it's your one game of the week, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very different between any form of kind of professional cricket and what you do for a job and what you do for fun. And I think the main reason that the club has been going for as long as it has been is we love the game. Like as a club, we absolutely love it, and we play it for the enjoyment. We play it for friendly competition, because at the end of the day, if we were professional, then we'd be playing for ourselves, we'd be playing for our livelihoods. But no, we play for the love of the game, we play for the love of the competition, simple as. So if you get to a point where do you play a game or do you not play a game, everybody there will want to be playing that game.
Can you just give us a flavour of your cricketing life then, Andy? Because you're probably Well, you are the youngest person we've interviewed tonight.
Yeah,
So,
definitely
so
am,
are you local, and where did your cricket life start?
Yeah, so local in so far as I'm from Beeston, which is just down the road, so a few miles away. My cricketing life really started watching my dad and my older brothers play cricket for Stanton.
Oh, right.
So you interviewed Barry Taylor earlier. He's my dad, and it was just coming up watching them play, enjoying the kind of the competition side of it, enjoying watching them play, and then you have a bit of a mess around with a bat, and then the older you get, the more and more you can kind of contribute.
Do you remember your debut? How old were you?
My senior team debut, I'd have been around about 10 or so, and I think I'd have been. I think I was playing for the second team, Newstead Abbey away. I do actually remember it quite worryingly, and just remember running around the field like an idiot, basically.
People used to watch at Newstead Abbey, don't they? In my memory, so I played a
Yeah,
couple
they
of
do,
times there, and you'd often get, because there was the pub there, wasn't there? And was it the pub? No. But you'd get a crowd, wouldn't you? At Newstead
Yeah.
Abbey?
It's in the country park.
That's right.
Really
yes.
narrow ground.
Yeah, very narrow but very long.
Yeah.
And very damp early in the
Yeah.
season. I remember.
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't remember massive amounts of the match. I only remember being run out for making a couple, batting at 11, and that was.
But was
about
it fun being in the dressing room and having sort of grown men around you playing the game properly that you'd been presumably ambitious to do yourself?
Absolutely. It's obviously a very big step when you start playing rather than just having a bit of a mess around on the side, and suddenly you've got grown men in the opposition who are treating you like they're treating the kind of your teammates. And it's like they're trying to get you out, and you're trying to do what you can to not. So, yeah.
One thing we've not asked at all during this course of interviews is about sledging or about antisocial behaviour on the field. I'm just interested. Did you get any of that as a youngster?
No, to be honest, I think.
Well, if you're
I was going to say I think we're probably one of the few, but I think because, as a rule, our club tended to play the game in the right spirit, we tended to not get too much back. Particularly back in the day, it tended to be there was a few individuals who would sledge, would give you some grief, but they were also the ones that you used to give it back to as well. And I think, in particular, in the what I'd call the modern game, over say the past 5-10 years, it tends to be clubs rather than individuals. So there's certain clubs who almost, I'm not going to say promote that activity, but there are definitely certain clubs that you dread coming up against just because it's like, oh, it's them again. It's like, right, we had these issues last year, these issues last year, and kind of grudges.
I won't ask you to name them because you're too young.
Trentside.
Because normally you can ask people who played back in the 50s and 60s they didn't get on with, but don't want to offend anybody.
Shall I just mention the fact that since also 3 years ago I've been umpiring in the Derbyshire League as well, so that's a relevant question as well for that, so which I found extremely interesting.
So how do you
thoroughly
combine the
enjoyable.
umpiring with the ground?
Well,
you prepare the ground.
I'm groundsman up till 11 o'clock or whatever, it's Saturday morning, and then it's over to these guys. So
is that a challenge then to be umpire, Dave? Is it?
It's certainly a challenge. But
Is it?
I've absolutely enjoyed it. Yeah.
What is behaviour like from an umpire's perspective?
It's the general concept. My own experience is it's been very, very good with one or two very small exceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an overall consensus among the older umpires that there was a bad spell possibly 2, 3, 4 years ago, and it got worse, and the league, to their credit, essentially clamped down very severely and made it very clear that there was some more than guidelines, very strong guidelines with sanctions, with punishments, and I think it's been very effective. So players are very, very keen and don't like being given out and all this sort of stuff, but in general I think there is an improvement. I've enjoyed it.
Talking about sledging, I was just thinking back to a favourite son of the club who's no longer with us anymore, but Phil George, who will be very widely known in Derbyshire cricket, was a big tall bowler and very mean, played for a lot of years, and really line and length, you couldn't get him away. And once he'd beaten a batsman 4 or 5 times in an over, he would say to him, "Let me see if I can bowl you a piano, see if you can play that." Now that's sledging, isn't it? That's sledging, really.
Something that makes you smile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than offends.
Absolutely.
Andy, I'm keen to know how did the One minute you're 10 years of age and you're making your debut and your little lad gets run out, and now you're captain. So what was that? How long did it take that to presumably became established in the first team?
Well, it's quite strange actually. So from kind of, we did have a youth side from when I was around about age 11, 12 through to when I was under 18, and we were actually the last proper youth side that actually that came through. So kind of predominantly went through youth cricket, and then when I was about 15 started playing adult cricket for the second team. Tended to back down the order, didn't really bowl very much, the odd over here and there of dross. Then got thrown in up the order with a bat in my hand and started batting more than I was bowling, and then ended up kind of meandering, to be honest. Personally, I was kind of bouncing between the first team and second team a fair amount, and then went to university where I got a completely different world of what cricket is, basically. So I was used to playing what's the kind of the village cricket that we were playing, all very kind of gentlemanly, kind of everyone playing in the right spirit. Thrown into university cricket, and it was all about winning, all about competing, and you're playing with and against some players that are playing at a very high standard. And then I came back from uni with a different idea of how to play cricket, and then stayed at Stanton for about 2 more years, I think it was, and then actually moved clubs and went to play for Hena Town, who were also playing in the Derbyshire leagues, but playing several division standards higher than Stanton were at, and playing at that level definitely developed my game, and I learned kind of how to build an innings rather than someone having potential and then getting themselves out. So that, you know what, that's not batsmanship, that's not how you actually create an innings. And then kind of, not going to say fell out of love with the game, but I took a season off because I wasn't available too often through work, and then just happened to be up at Stanton watching Dad play on one Saturday, and thought, you know what, I actually fancy coming back and playing some gentlemanly cricket for the club that I played for as a junior. And then the following year, I think that was the back end of one season, and then 2016 I think it was, came back, and then straight in the first team. And then by the end of that season, our captain had resigned and I'd taken over the reins. And then
you enjoy captaincy?
I do enjoy captaincy, but it's a lot of work. It's not, the Saturday bit is perfect.
It's Friday night phone calls.
All
week.
It's all week phone calls. It's speaking to the other captains, speaking to like kind of vice captains, ringing round throughout the week. That's our biggest difficulties that we've had, or the biggest challenge that we've really had as a club over the past few years, has been making sure that we get 22 players out on a Saturday. And last season was the exception, where there were some weeks where we weren't picking people because we had too many people available. So we weren't kind of scrounging around for the last couple of players. We're actually having to tell well-established players, I'm sorry, but you're not playing this week. But no, in general, enjoy captaincy. I enjoy kind of running it. But yeah, definitely a stressful job.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, we started off this final interview by paying a tribute to Doug King. And I think one of the things to close that I'd like to say is we've spoken to more than a dozen people here tonight at Stanton Cricket Club, and whilst Doug may have had a wonderful role to play in the club, there's clearly still some equally committed, hard-working and enthusiastic people. It's been a pleasure to meet you all. I'd like to thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
you.